Alright, so we'll try this again. Sorry this is taking so long, Gianna. I had some technical difficulties on here, but I need to be able to tell you what we went over, and I'm not going to be able to write that in an email. It's kind of too complicated. But basically, I've sent you three files. Two of them are Flash files that have kind of examples for you to see how things get set up. And the third one is just a Word file that goes over spells out the midterm, and it's a midterm that we're going to be working on over the next few classes. We're not going to have little in-class assignments or little homework things. It's just going to be this. All right. So for a visual, what I mean by a proto game is something like this. You're gonna have a character. He's gonna have a bit of motion on him. You'll be able to make him go back and forth, make him jump maybe, and a few other things. There will be a background, but there's not going to be, it doesn't need a whole story, it doesn't need, a whole overarching mechanic. It's just we want to get a little bit of interactivity in with some of our animation, right? So, as it's spelled out in the doc, there needs to be 4 character actions, moving, whether left or right, like a run counts as one. If you have one thing that's a run and one thing that's a walk, that's 2 different things. I just included a bunch of options: jump, hit, taunt, build. There's also dig or sit, or I am sure you'll come up with some interesting stuff. And you should also, this doesn't count as an action, but you need to have something when they're standing there, right? So they're not just standing there. Alright, the second thing is there needs to be some kind of background. I actually kind of took out the scrolling part of this during class, so you just want a background. If you wanted to do some kind of scrolling background, I'll show you guys how to kind of engineer that in the next class. The third thing will be a splash screen. So it won't just open up into a random character standing there. You'll have a little intro screen of your choosing, and when you press a button that says start or play or enter or anything like that, it will go to the actual quote-unquote game. And the fourth thing is, and this will make more sense after the next class, is there's going to be some type of button that toggles some kind of option. Now, whether that's music turning on and off or taking the sky and having it change between 2 colors, that'll be up to you. That depends on your game. That depends on what you want to put in. And then this fifth thing is, it's optional, it's not required, but you guys made some buttons in the previous assignments. If you wanted to connect those and have those work in addition to the keystrokes, that'll just be like an extra credit thing. Alright, but so the schedule down here, right, like I'm going to show you the code we looked at. People didn't learn how to write it or anything, it's just an understanding of which piece means what. But they started doing the little animations that'll be called up by the action scripting, right? So by the next class, you want to have all that animation in there, and you want to have your background designed, even if it's not completely finished, because it depends on what you want to do with it. And then we're going to learn the more specifics of the action script, how to actually kind of plug and play, make changes so it'll work for you, and how to add the splash screen. And then the following class, the 20th, you should have most of it kind of done by then. And then what'll happen is this will be like a troubleshooting class, which we're going to need because that's what happens when you have any kind of code or script or anything like that. And then also, we're going to have a couple extra things I show you guys how to put in. And so at the end of the class, you'll have something that's pretty much finished. You'll hand it in because I have to give you a midterm grade before the end of the 20th. But then if you wanted to add any fixes or tweaks or anything like that, you can do that before the next week, and that next week is when everyone will hand in everything finally, and we're going to have a critique. Everyone's going to show off their stuff. We'll get to see how, what everyone did, because everyone's going to have a different take on this. Alright, but what we went over was, so you bring your character into Flash, but there's a specific way to animate it so that the animation can be pulled up by the script, right? So you'll notice on both of these files that I'm looking at, there's like only one layer, there's only one frame, there's no timeline there, right? All the animation exists within a movie clip. And if you double click on it, you can see here, there's that animation, there's this animation, and then there's the jump animation, right? I have the same thing on my character. Come on. There we go. It's longer because there's more of it, and I made these bigger, but, you know, so there's some, I got a still animation right there. I got his little bobble walk, right? And then I've got room for other things. I haven't actually put any of them there yet. And this is extra that we can get rid of. There we go. So, but all the animation exists inside this movie clip, and it gets called up based on these little labels we put here, right? So they don't just play in order, right? The action script, you know, someone presses a button, this thing plays, and they press a different button, and this thing plays, and then it goes back to this if they're not pressing any buttons. So this is why we have to organize this in this exact particular manner. All right.